Beyond Netero actually has 3 children! Hello and welcome back to Suckwar Central. My name is CJ, and today I want to put forth the idea that Beyond Netero has planted more than just one of his seeds beneath the great tree of Kakin. I believe there's a good chance his children are Camilla, Tabepa, and Luzerus. In other words, all the children of second Queen Dwzle. So let's dive into why exactly I believe this to be the case. First of all, as many people have already stated, having multiple children just makes more sense. Beyond is a careful planner and not the type to put all his eggs into one proverbial basket. After all, he only needs one of his children to win the succession war. And the more kids are his, the better the chances that one of them wins. But then we have to consider the risks of having multiple children in the first place. You see, despite this literally being called the Cucking Empire, doing anything to disrespect the king or compromise the monarchy, like, say, banging one of his wives, is going to be met with some pretty serious retribution. I mean, Kakin cares a lot about its bloodlines and the purity of the monarchy and royal blood and all that, and any queen that gives birth to one of Beyond's children is giving birth to a child that doesn't have a drop of royal blood in their body. That's pretty serious. And furthermore, let us not make the mistake of stripping these queens of autonomy as individuals. You have to realize that they all have to, agree to cheat with Beyond for this to work, right? Unless they're being manipulated, but we'll come back to that. What I'm trying to say is that Beyond can't just rock up to a queen and go, "Hey baby, let me hit so I can control your country in the future." Because you've got to remember that these women are also taking a huge risk. I mean, cheating on the king is genuinely insane unless they're getting something out of it. And knowing Beyond Netero for the manipulative bastard he is, I think he genuinely seduced one of the queens. Let's face it, I doubt any of the queens love King Nasubi. Most of them, like Oito, probably married the king to escape lives of squalor and poverty, and he picked them up for their looks. There's no love there, it's a transactional relationship. They got the luxury and status they wanted, but now they have to bear the king's children and raise their kids to win the succession war. But some of these women are bound to end up lonely and unfulfilled. They're making a trade-off that can't be undone, is their only option to escape from truly dire conditions, and they can't understand the consequences of until they're living with them. Some of them will no doubt long for the genuine romance they gave up in order to avoid dying of sepsis in a slum. And that's where Beyond enters the picture. We've seen that he's an extremely charismatic and manipulative charmer, and I could absolutely imagine him seducing a queen by being the handsome, rugged adventurer who wants to change the world and loves the queen for her personality, not just her looks. Heck, it probably wouldn't even be that hard, with how starved for connection a lot of these women are bound to be. I could easily see him having an affair with a queen, convincing her he loves her, and coming up with this bombastic plan to get their child on the throne so they can be together. Sure, he could appeal to certain queens' lust for power, but Beyond is all about control. And I think a woman who's genuinely infatuated with him would be a lot easier to control and a lot more willing to take these risks for him, so he's most likely to target one of them. And what's more, these affairs are really hard to keep secret from literally everyone. If he were to two-time with one of the other queens, well then they'd realize he didn't actually love them, and they'd blow the whole thing up and then his plan is sunk. No, the safest option is to completely and utterly enthrall one of the queens and then have as many children with just her as possible. So why Dwzle specifically? Well, I have a multitude of reasons to suspect this. For one, Beyond would want to aim as high as possible in the queen's hierarchy, because higher ranking queens have more power. But for whatever reason, it seems like he either wasn't able to or didn't want to get with Unma. I say this because it seems like Benjamin has been ruled out as a possibility for being one of his children, and Unma seems like the power-hungry type that would be difficult for Beyond to work with in the long run. Furthermore, she is shown to have no issue taking an active role in the succession war. Halkenburg asked her for her help in some as of yet unknown way, and she promised to provide. This, I think, is not the ideal strategy for anyone working with Beyond. See, if he manages to set his curses off, the entire succession war could come to an end, just like that. The ideal move would be to slow the roll on the whole conflict and stall for time for Beyond to meet whatever conditions he has to in order to do exactly that. And which queen has tried to do exactly that? Dwzle is the only one who has even made anything resembling an effort. We don't know all the queen's personalities, but Seiko, Swinko, and Unma have all made moves to try and add more fuel to the fire of the succession war. Patrono has actively wanted Tyson to participate, and Oito just wants out of all this, not like someone who knows her man will take care of her. Dwzle, however, did the opposite. When Camilla asked for help taking on Benjamin, she refused it. Now that's very strange, given that Benjamin is not her child, and is thus her enemy. Surely she would want to offer Camilla any help she could, right? But no, Dwzle refused to add fuel to that fire, and has been the most demure and passive of any of the queens that we've seen. We don't know shit about Tang Zhao Li still, and I hope that changes. Furthermore, I think she knew exactly how the Camilla and Benjamin confrontation would go down. See, she tells Camilla's guards not to back her up when they initially planned to, or at least they planned to try and stop her, which was the smart and conflict-averse play. With Camilla going herself, she's gonna get herself thrown in prison, where she's ironically safer than with free reign, because when she has free will, she makes bad decisions that put her into worse situations. And if she dragged her soldiers into the whole thing with her, it would have been an absolute bloodbath. Dwzle absolutely seems like she's stalling for time to let Beyond's curses take care of the problem for her. However, I do have a far more sinister idea about Dwzle. I think there's a decent chance Beyond Netero is in some way manipulating her. Like, with Nen this time, not emotionally. I get this idea from Longhi's backstory. She explains how once her half-sister Makaha went against Beyond's plans, her parents were strangely calm and acting out of character. Longhi strongly suspected that they were in some way being manipulated. So that's at least one case of Beyond having manipulated a woman he banged, and also her partner, which opens up a serious can of worms. Like at that point, we have to ask, was Beyond manipulating this woman with Nen before they conceived Makaha? That is a horrifying possibility that I would absolutely not put past this man. Anyway, that entire story shows direct parallels to Dwazle's situation and behavior. She's incredibly passive and demure at all times, and what if this isn't just because she's waiting for Beyond's curses to activate? What if she's under the effects of a Nen ability that is keeping her calm? It honestly kind of seems like Beyond has some sort of pseudo-coercive manipulator ability where one of the conditions is he has to smash the person he uses it on. And like I said, the parallels. It's when Makaha drops out of the royal army, saying she's going to do what she wants with her life, that her parents show evidence of manipulation by being uncharacteristically calm about the whole situation. And similarly, we see Dwazle's demure nature on full display when Camilla says or does something she disapproves of. It's like she's actively forbidden from having an opinion of her own or interfering. And that's what makes me think Beyond might have not only seduced Dwzle, but then gone on to manipulate her with Nen. There's another reason I think Dwzle is the one over Unma though. See, their children's personalities are wildly different, and I genuinely cannot fathom Unma's children ever accepting the situation if they found out Beyond was their father. Benjamin cares about his country and its ideals and wants to preserve the monarchy, and would be horrified by the revelation that he doesn't have a drop of royal blood in him. Terra Sandwich's ego would crumble under that same revelation, and Halkenburg cares way too much about having control over and reforming Kakin to ever work with Beyond in the ways Beyond is going to want. Contrast this with Dwazle's children. You might expect Camilla's pride to be hurt, but she never actually shows a sense of superiority from being royal. She doesn't believe in monarchy, bloodlines, or status. She only believes in herself because she's an egomaniac. She doesn't like Nasubi, and I can't see her caring if Beyond was her father. Beppa and Luzerus also would have nothing against that. They'd probably welcome it, knowing it gave them better odds of being king. So this difference in personality could be down to the individuals, sure, but I think nurture is much more important than nature. To me, this shows that these princes have simply been raised and taught to prioritize different things. And wouldn't that be awfully convenient if this set of princes were educated into mindsets that would let them accept Beyond as their father? And before anyone says that Luzerus is actually the child of Brocco Li because he's connected to that mafia family, and Zhongle is the son of Onyor of the Zhiyu, no, I don't think so. This is an assumption the fandom has long held, but it doesn't need to be true in the slightest. After all, Morena, the boss of the Heil Li, isn't Terra Sandwich's mother. And yes, this is a replacement Morena, but the old boss of the Heil Li was the real Morena, and unless she was transgender, which would be a fucking crazy piece of lore for Takashi to drop about a character who died before the arc even started, but I guess is technically possible. This proves that the children with mafia connections are not always the product of unions between the mafia bosses and queens. So, there could be any number of reasons Lazarus and Terror Sandwich were the benefactors of the mafia families they were. Heck, Lazarus might even bankroll the Cha-Ar specifically because of the connections Beyond established for him. We have no way of knowing for the time being. So yeah, logistically, from every point of view you could consider it, I think forming relations with Dwzle was the most pragmatic choice for Beyond and the most likely one he pursued. Now, I'm sure some of you are gonna go, CJ, I thought you were all Wobble as Beyond's child believer because of the whole Pariston thing, and well, look, I go back and forth on these things, okay? Give me a week and I'll probably think it's Wobble or Miriam again, because I cannot for the life of me stop thinking about Hunter x Hunter. But right now, as I make this video, I think it's the Dwzle kids, and that's all that matters. I hope you can see why, and I hope you have a wonderful day.